Hi, welcome to IELTS Express. This is a video lesson on the Academic IELTS Writing Exam Task 1. Task 1 is a report based on any of these things, either a graph, a chart, could be a pie chart or a bar chart, or a diagram in which you will have to describe a process. Now, we will focus on the graph today. I have a sample graph which you can use. So we'll look at the question on the graph. So the question for this task says, the graph below shows the proportion of population aged 65 and over in 3 different countries. Summarize and describe the main features. Now, we don't have to go too much into detail. You need to write 150 words at least in the space of only 20 minutes. The examiners look for an introduction, a main body and a conclusion in your report. So the first thing you need to do is start with your introduction. What you can do in your introduction is you can rephrase the question. So instead of repeating the question, which won't get you any points, you need to use different words to describe what you see. So we could say, the graph depicts the amount of people aged 65 and over in the USA, Sweden and Japan between the years 1940 and 2040. Or you could say, the graph presents the amount of elderly people aged 65 and over between 1940 and 2040 in Japan, Sweden and the USA. So as you can see, we have rephrased the question, and that is the most easiest way to start. In your introduction, you will need to describe a little bit more about the main trends. So let's have a look at this graph again and see what's going on, what the main things that you can notice are. Of course, there is a growth in all of the countries, but we can see that in Japan, the numbers of elderly people stay very, very much the same up until about 2000 and I would say 5, and then start rising. While in the USA and Sweden, we have a similar trend going on. We have an upward trend between 1940 and 1980. We can see that in 1960 it started rising even more. So we won't go into the fine details, but we can describe what's going on in the USA and Sweden and Japan. We'll leave the comparison till the end. So there is some useful vocabulary that you can use in this task, which will make it a lot easier. And we'll give you a range of words so that you don't end up repeating yourself over and over again. Some of the words you can use as nouns are a rise, which I just used just now, an increase, which means the same thing, a surge, a growth, a peak, a fluctuation or a variation, a period of stability or a plateau, a fall, a decrease, a decline. Now we don't have any falls in our graph. It is rising. We can use these as verbs as well, for example, to rise, to increase, to surge, to grow. But remember, if it's something that happened in the past, you have to use the past tense. So for regular verbs, add ed at the end. If it's happening in the present, remember you have to speak in the present tense, so you need an S. If it's a prediction, like what we see going on in this chart, there is a prediction or an estimate. Because we're now in 2013, we are not in 2020 yet, so they're estimating what will happen in the future. That means you will have to use the future tense. So for example, actually there is a fall here. If you can see in the line graph for Sweden, you can see that between I would say 2015 and say 2025, there is a slight decline or a slight fall in the proportion of elderly population. So you could say it is estimated that there will be a slight fall or a slight decrease in the proportion of elderly population in Sweden between 2015 and 2025. Again, you can use it is estimated that or it is predicted that. So you can talk about all this in the main body of your report, which will contain all the main information. Now the conclusion is important because in the conclusion the IELTS examiners look for comparison language. So what you need to do is you need to sum up what you have just described. To sum up, you can use in conclusion, or you can use to sum up, or lastly, or the word finally. These are all academic words to use in reports and essay, which will help you get your 6.5 or above. So you have to use comparison language. For example, I could say, to sum up, the USA and Sweden have had a rising amount of people aged 65 and over from 1940 up until now, while Japan experienced a slight decrease in the number of elderly population between 1940 and 1960, but then will surpass Sweden and the USA, or it is estimated that Japan will have many more elderly people in 2030, or it is estimated that the proportion of elderly people in Japan will skyrocket in 2030. and it will be, I was going to say much more, but you need a formal word, so it will markedly surpass the population of elderly people in the USA and Sweden. I hope this has helped you. This is just for the graph, so this vocabulary, you can use some of it for the bar chart, but it's mainly for the graph. If you are after more vocabulary and more tips and techniques, please contact me. I am available on Skype for one-to-one lessons, and I also teach small courses. So if you would like to join a course or book a lesson, I am available. You can contact me at my email address below. I look forward to hearing from you. Goodbye.